Good evening, all. It's Wednesday, it's 8:30 in the evening, and as ever, it's the Boxing Gossip podcast. We didn't do one last week because of the Christmas holidays, but we're back with a vengeance in the new year. And tonight, I'm joined on the panel by Paul and by Irish Tom. Jet is busy with some university work, so may or may not be able to join us later. Seri, I'm not sure if he's going to join later on, but it's just the three musketeers to begin with. Just before we get into the show tonight and start talking through our list of topics that we've got prepared, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to someone. So many of you guys will know that I'm good friends with Mr. Ultratech Sports. He's actually created a new YouTube channel. The name of the channel is Ultratech Sports and then a space Raw, RAW, Ultratech Sports Raw. I know a lot of people who viewed my channel were big fans of his old channel. So if you want to check him out, go over, type his name in, and he's got his first video up there and he talks about his plans for the future for his new channel. So hit the subscribe button on there. That's some quality boxing content even. Without further ado, let's crack on to and as you guys will probably be aware, there wasn't much boxing to speak of last week. There's actually not much boxing to speak of this weekend either. So we're more going to discuss some of the major stories in the sport at present. And also we're going to look at a few of the major stories in 2017 as we look ahead to the year ahead, if you like. And one of the major stories that I wanted to start off with was the suggestion he's potentially imminent return to boxing. Tyson Fury and Peter Fury and John Fury have all given various interviews and sent out various tweets. And the theme seems to be that Tyson will be returning and that he is targeting a comeback fight sometime April and May. At present, he's back in the gym. And I think Peter Fury described it as, he's training currently, trying to get his weight down before he starts serious boxing training. So I guess whether you like or hate Tyson Fury, good news to have him back in the division. He's certainly one of the sport's top characters, and it'll be, from my perspective, great to have him back. But let's start by handing it over to Irish Tom. And Tom, your take on this news about Tyson Fury returning, is this something to whet your appetite for boxing in 2017?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to hold my breath. That's the only thing. Tyson is my favorite fighter, but I'm not going to hold my breath. The other thing is, when you see these guys from maybe the 80s and that, and a lot of the guys then, the boxers, used to go and party and take drugs and booze and all that. They didn't live the life of Bernard Hopkins like a freaking monk or something. So those guys, their careers didn't last past their early 30s. They were well past it. So Tyson, if he's been doing all that boozing and doing the drugs, for who knows how long, a year, that's going to take an effect. So I think that Tyson only has, if he does come back, and to me it's not a guaranteed thing. I don't think we'll get. I think Tyson, we won't have that much left. What age is he? 27, 28.
Yes.
I think he'll have 5 years at the top, like his namesake, like Tyson, Mike Tyson. These boys who take drugs and go around acting the bollocks and drinking. I think that's all we get out of him if he does come back. I hope he comes back because I really like Tyson Fury. But, I'm not going to hold my breath. There's been so much weird shit around Tyson and, his rematches with Klitschko and all that I wouldn't surprise if he doesn't come back. The other thing as well is that sometimes when people have nervous breakdowns or whatever, if it was a nervous breakdown or he was bipolar, sometimes people never come back from a bad period really the same. Maybe that confidence he'll have, that self-belief, his ability to talk, if he's been seen to be if he's been seen or he feels in himself that he's lost some of that thing, or the way people are looking at him is different, he mightn't come back as the same fighter. So I hope he does, because there's just brilliant fights out there for him. AJ, Wilder, David Hay, if it could ever possibly be made, Ortiz, Klitschko, if it could be made. There's great fights out there for him. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the weight quickly, Tom. There's been various photos of Tyson Fury circulating in the press and on social media. Tyson Fury is a guy who's actually stepped into the ring before weighing, pretty much 20 stone. I remember a few of his fights where he weighed in 19 and a half to 20 stone. And it appeared to my eye that he was substantially heavier than when he took those fights at near 20 stone. I'm not a dietitian, I'm not an expert at these things, but to me, he looked like a man who was 23, 24, maybe even 25, 26 stone in some of those photos. I guess my question to you is, I know he's a young guy, I know he's clearly an athlete, and he's someone who trains very hard. What sort of damage do you think that's doing, blowing up to that sort of weight between training camps? We know he's a guy who's lived the life outside of the ring, let's put it that way perhaps, but obviously that's going to catch up with him at some point. Do you believe at 27, 28 he's still young enough?
I think he's young enough to do it, but I don't think he'll get away with it again, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I think, Tyson needs to be kept busy. The other thing is, I don't know how much bigger he is now than he was, say, when he was at that Klitschko press conference, the first one. And he cut that weight pretty easy. There's pictures of him before he, cancelled that show, and he wasn't, crazy overweight then. He was a bit heavier than he was when they had the first match, but he was probably down to 18 stone or something like that. So, the other thing is, fat is lighter than, is it muscle is twice the weight of fat? Is that true?
Yeah.
Something like that. So you can look a lot bigger, and you can shed the fat if you're able to shed it. The other thing is, here's a controversial one. I wonder, is he going to be drug tested now if he's officially back in training? Because
that's going to have to be a question, isn't it? Because now he's potentially fallen foul of drug testing before. People are going to question how impressive that weight loss was previously, I guess. So that's an interesting.
Definitely.
Well, is this not a question anyway? Sorry to interrupt you in that, but surely is this not? Nobody seems to be even stopping to think about this. It's kind of like before the whole sort of I'm having a nervous breakdown and I'm retiring from boxing and whatnot. Before that, we had the positive cocaine test. We had him and Hughie both tested positive. Apparently, well, I don't know whether they actually tested positive, but it was certainly. Somebody might correct me on that. Did they actually fail the test or what? Because, if you guys remember at that time, a lot of people were kind of speculating that actually, it might be to kind of just avoid having to face the music with regards a lot of that stuff that was going on, that he actually went the route he did. And I don't know, has that stuff been cleared up? Has he still got stuff to face? It looked like he might be getting banned at one stage.
There was supposed to be a hearing in November. That hearing was referred to in multiple interviews. And to be honest, it's gone very, very quiet since then. I'm unaware if that hearing actually took place. Obviously, with Tyson Fury being a retired fighter, if you like, it's unclear whether there'd ever be a need for him to attend such a hearing anyway.
They would still give him a ban.
They can't force you to attend a hearing. I mean, if you're a retired
they'll still give you a ban whether you say you're retired or not. It happens at the time. There's been other fighters who have been old and failed the drug test, like Tony Thompson. Even if he never fights again, they'll give him a ban. But
I'm going to suggest that if he does officially announce his return to boxing and does officially, I don't know, ask for sort of licensing back or whatever, however it works. I don't know whether he had to relinquish anything or whatever. But if he does do that officially, I'm going to suggest it's not entirely impossible that he might have some music to face before any sort of fights get made or anything like that. I mean, I can't imagine all that can go on. You can just say, "Oh, I'm retiring," and then 3 months later say, "Oh, change my mind," and come back, and it all just go away. That'd be a bit weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be. I mean, that would be absolutely bizarre if the goal to avoid any sort of hearing or any sort of testing was that you just go through a period of retirement and then come back out of retirement. Presumably
Well,
that's
here,
the case because Hughie has never retired, and as we understand, Hughie was due to attend this hearing as well.
And whatever happened to Peter Fury been talking about how he would tell everybody about what happened and all that kind of stuff? I haven't heard a peep out of him since.
I haven't heard anything. It's actually gone scarily quiet, hasn't it? Usually you'd expect some sort of rumbling or some sort of rumor, but there's been absolutely nothing as far as I'm aware. I don't even know if this hearing occurred.
Well, in one of Hatman's videos, he was saying that it didn't happen. It was supposed to have been postponed, but the postponed hearing didn't even happen. So I honestly don't know. But I just think it may not be as cut and dry as kind of like, oh, Tyson comes back, will he be the same fighter again or not? I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as that. I think, I mean, Tom makes a really good point when people come back from, if he did have a breakdown or whatever, a lot of people aren't ever the same again. And so...
if it is bipolar though, people tend to come back from bipolar, as opposed to a nervous breakdown. That kind of mania, people come down off it.
Bipolar tends to need treatment. Tends to need ongoing treatment, and that ongoing treatment is not without its side effects. So
that's true. Like a friend of mine, brother, this is a sad story. He got a phone call one day, and his brother was after running out. He was in his house, and there was a school kid. There was a school across the road, and he had to run out in the nip. And he was trying to grab children, saying he was Jesus Christ. He just got a phone call from the cops out of the blue. The cops had to go and pull him down. He got diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. And man, I didn't see that kid for about a year, and he was a slim guy, not skinny, but a slim, athletic guy. When I saw him, 1 year later or even less, I'd say 11 stone when I last saw him. He must have been 18 stone when I saw him. That's a lot of the drugs that they take for, I don't know whether it's schizophrenia or manic depression or bipolar. I think that's the same thing nowadays, this new name for it. But it put such a crazy amount of weight on him. It was something ridiculous.
Yeah.
When I saw Tyson...
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, when I saw him blowing up myself, I was thinking, I was thinking that could be a side effect of the drugs as well,
Yeah, and then there's also the fact that he lost the weight quite quickly as well. If you remember in the run-up, it's not to make any accusation or anything like that, but just that can also if we're going to say it about guys like Lucas Brown, they're extremely heightened athletic condition, where there was none previously, has to still be kind of suspect. It's not to accuse anybody of anything, because of course we don't know what people are doing and are not doing, but from what we know, I just think,
but the one thing,
it's unlikely to be as cut and dry as just him coming back. I'd love to see him just come back and be that mover and kind of that he was, but I don't know that that's
the one thing I would say. The one thing
I don't know if you guys remember, ages ago I said I don't think Tyson Fury will be in this game for long. I said it on one of the earlier podcasts, and it's always been my feeling about him. He's one of those characters that kind of you get them a lot in music and stuff like that, that you see an interview with them and you think, right, okay, you're a little bit kind of like cuckoo. There's they're usually unique and they're usually really talented and stuff, but they're also a little bit of a screw loose. He's always struck me like that,
Absolutely. The other thing I'd throw in, just we'll leave the performance enhancing drugs thing in a minute because I don't want to spend a show on it. But just one final comment on that would be that in my experience, which is somewhat limited, often when these fighters get a ban, their ban runs from the time of their last fight. We've seen it before where fighters have been banned for 6 months or something like that, but it actually hasn't affected their schedule because, you know, they've been able to get out on a 6-monthly basis as they would normally. Now, I don't know. I've got no suggestion that Tyson Fury has been banned, will be banned, etc. But if he's returning April, May, it's actually 18 months since his last fight. So it is not entirely impossible that if any sort of ban were to have been imposed on him, it will have been imposed from the ending of his last fight. No, and therefore that he'll have served the ban, which is bizarre. I appreciate.
I thought bans usually run from when they're actually handed out. I didn't think they run from, because I don't know. I could be wrong. I wouldn't imagine, because it was about a year afterwards, wasn't it? It was about a year afterwards during the preparation for the Klitschko 2 fight that
it came out. Yeah.
What happened? It was about a year afterwards. It'd be strange for them to just count the year that had just gone. I don't know. I could be wrong. I think that'd be odd, but
it would be incredibly odd, and it would be completely illogical. But this is boxing, and I can't think of specific examples off the top of my head, but I've seen that happen before, which, you know, anyway. But Paul, if Tyson Fury is to return, do you think they will strategically plot a route to the top? Do you think they will have 2 or 3 comeback fights? Do you think they'll slowly build a level of opposition like they did before with the Christian Hamers and the Derek Chisoras? Or do you think at this stage it is about the superstar fights, the pay-per-view sales, the mega bucks? I mean, what I'm getting at is Tyson Fury coming back to have 2 or 3 massive fights? Or is he coming back with a career in mind? Is he coming back looking to have, 10 fights and be active and plot a route? Do you have any gut instinct on that, mate?
I mean, my gut instinct would be that if he does come back and he does fight again in 2017, particularly if he fights again in April 2017, I think from their perspective, and particularly from Tyson himself's perspective, it would probably be the latter. It would be trying to come back for the big fights and whatnot. Whether that's in his hands or not is another matter. Whether he can actually get those big fights now is another matter. I'm not sure. Because as you alluded to regarding, I watched your video about Joseph Parker's situation. A lot of the champions are kind of like certainly tied up for the early part of the year, and also have mandatory obligations, and so it may not be completely within his hands. But I would say if it was up to him, I think he would be wanting to come back, have a couple of big fights, a couple of massive paydays, and leave the sport again. Because I don't think that the stuff that pisses him off, the stuff that he can't seem to get his head around, the way the press are, the way certain other people in boxing are, that none of that's going to change. None of that is going to change. And if he couldn't cope with it before, my guess is he's not going to want to cope with it for years and years and years again. So I think it just depends on how things go. There's a lot of factors to this situation that are sort of like unknown.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's really hard to kind of like even speculate with any kind of authority in any way, because there's so many unknowns. But that'd be my guess if it was up to them.
Yeah, well, I guess now that they're definitely working with Frank Warren, if they do decide to go down the route of having comeback fights and gradual step-up fights, Frank Warren definitely has the platform to do that, given his 30-so deal across BT Sports and Box Nation. And given that Frank's got to promote all of those shows, if he can, have 3 or 4 of those headlined by Tyson Fury, I'm sure that will be massively mutually beneficial. So yeah,
you've got to.
Sorry, go ahead, mate.
Thing is, though, you've got to wonder where Mick Hennessy's going to figure in that, because what they, for all their potential faults, what they do strike me as, particularly Tyson, strikes me as is very, very loyal, and they've been with Mick Hennessy for a long time. I don't know that. I don't know how that would work.
I'm just not sure where Mick Hennessy is at the minute, though. I mean, he's lost the Gale. He's lost Channel 5. He's lost Eubank Jr. Does he have any fighters? Does he have any shows? I mean, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. But then again, he didn't have many fighters before, did he? And yet he's still, Tyson still stuck with him. He's still, co-promoted the first Klitschko fight and whatnot, didn't he? So, and I don't think he had really very many fighters even then, did he? I don't know. I mean, it's a question.
Well, he used to have Carl Froch. And he used to have Kell Brook as well, didn't he?
Yeah, but that wasn't when the Tyson Fury Klitschko fight happened. Like, you're going back a bit.
No.
Back. Yeah. So.
But here, I can just want to say something in defense of Tyson Fury and the drug taking stuff. Is that, like, if you look at, say, Tyson when he fought Derek Chisora and he was 20 stone or whatever the hell he was, he still had a hell of an engine when he was just drinking and boozing, and so he's a natural athlete. So I think that if he's taking drugs, the thing that I think is most likely, I know what he got caught for, but it's ones to help him strip weight, as opposed to steroids or something like that. So I could imagine like he might have used that, because when you think back to, say, when he was fighting what do you call the Irish cab driver guy again? What's his name?
Martin Rogan.
Martin Rogan. Like when Fury fought Martin Rogan, Fury couldn't have been any more than 17 stone. Like he was slim then.
Yeah.
He was properly slim and athletic. To me that was like his peak fitness, like as a physique looking. But I think Fury's just a natural athlete. I'd be surprised if he's doing something like Austrian or something like that. I think it's more likely to be something to help him cut the weight, because he has had weight problems. That's the way I look at it. But I think he won't put him in with a tough fight first. I think he'll do one fight and then they'll put him in with anybody, because Tyson's ready. The only reason Tyson took so long fighting Hammer and these guys, because he's waiting for those mandatories to come up against Klitschko. Tyson's the type of guy who'll just fight all the best guys straight in a row.
Yeah,
he'll go. He'd take on Joshua Wilder and Klitschko 3 fights in a row if his head was right.
I mean, I don't think he fights like Hammer and that. I don't think they would have even happened if he could have got the Klitschko fight straight away. I don't think.
Yeah, totally.
Hammer wouldn't have happened. What was the one before Hammer?
Was it Joey Abel?
Say again?
Was it Joey Abel?
It might have been Joey Abel, yeah.
Yeah. Or it might have been... Oh, no, Chisora was the one.
Chisora.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Well, certainly a Fury return would add intrigue and it would add character to the heavyweight division. So you guys know I'm a massive fan of him. Tom said he's his favourite fighter. I agree with that. He's my favourite fighter as well. So let's hope from that perspective he is back. And, I know we get a lot of views internationally on this podcast, but what I've got to say is from a UK perspective, Fury versus Joshua, Fury versus Hay, those sort of fights are about as big as it gets over here from a UK perspective. So let's hope it goes ahead.
Yeah.
Perfect. Speaking about mega UK fights, there has been a lot of chat and a lot of rumour recently about Amir Khan versus Kell Brook being made for 2017. Now, we've got to be a little bit careful here because time and time again, we've discussed this particular matchup and we've discussed whether the two guys will actually fight. And time again, it hasn't happened.
Tom, disgust is the right word.
Yeah. Discussed, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll start with you then, Tom, on this one. So I take it from that reaction, you're very sceptical that this fight goes ahead.
Oh, look, Khan versus Brook, it's like watching fucking Dawson's Creek. Will Dawson be with Joey or no, they broke it off and now they're back together again and now she's shagging Pacey and Dawson is smashing some other snatch. Listen, it's just like I can't listen to Amir Khan and Kell Brook talk anymore. Like I don't look at any videos on the internet about it at all, because until that fight actually signed, I don't give a damn. And the other thing I'd say as well is, like, the time for that fight to happen was last year before they went and both got their heads bet in. That fight then was a good fight between two top 147 fighters. And now it's like, it's like being on Stevens' Day or Boxing Day, as they call it in the UK. It's like being on Boxing Day and eating cold turkey sandwiches. You know what I mean? I don't really give a shit about that fight. I don't think that's a Wembley fight. I don't think it'll sell like it would have sold 12 months ago. And, I don't really... I just, if it happens, I'll watch it and I'll probably be hyped for when it happens because it's a good fight. But I'm not putting up with all the bullshit, Amir Khan one day says, oh, Kell Brook, it's going to happen. And then the next day he says, oh, I've lost respect for Kell Brook. And then the next day he says, oh, now I'll suck his cock. And then the next day, it's just, it drive you make you put a gun to your head listening to them too.
Yeah, I think Eddie Hearn said that they wouldn't look to do it at Wembley because, they've got so many big fights down south at the minute with Hay Bellew and Joshua Klitschko, etc. So I think he was kind of suggesting that they do it in a stadium up north. He mentioned Bolton, which is obviously where Amir Khan is from, or potentially even at Old Trafford. I actually disagree with you, Tom. I must say, I think that Amir Khan has a massive fan base. I think the fight is a very, very exciting fight. I think the build-up would be excellent, and I don't think they would struggle whatsoever to sell tickets for this matchup. I don't think that would struggle.
But to me, it's kind of like having James DeGale versus George Groves again now. Go back a year before he lost to Badu Jack. That's a bigger fight. You know what I mean? Even though it's still a tough fight, I don't think it'll sell as much because George Groves, the shaved pig, is damaged goods, So I just think that the real time for that being a big fight was last year. They both got their heads bet in. Like, if it does happen, both guys are just cashing out. I just think it's a cash out fight. Two guys that are post prime, took a shellacking, and now they're here to make some money. I'm not up for that fight. I'm not up for it.
Me, I've got to be honest. I think you could make an argument that Amir Khan's past prime, and I think you could make an argument that the reason Amir Khan would now be up for the fight, whereas he hasn't been up for the fight historically, is because having had a big loss against Canelo, it is a cash-out fight. I actually don't think this is the same for Kell Brook. I don't think it's hard. I think it's quite hard to say that Kell Brook is actually past his prime. I think Kell Brook went in against a much better fighter at a weight class he had no business being in and lost. But I don't think Kell Brook is past his prime. And I also don't think this is a cash-out fight for Kell Brook. I think it's a very, very sensible fight for Kell Brook. It's the biggest fight for Kell Brook in terms of his publicity. And for me, it's a fight I'd make him a 75-25 favourite in. So I kind of get what you're saying, but more from a Khan perspective as opposed to a Brook perspective, surely.
But look, if Brook fought Manny Pacquiao, that's a bigger fight for it. Like, that's just a bigger worldwide fight. Without a mistake.
Does it make as much money and sell as much tickets for Brook? I doubt it. Maybe as much as Manny Pacquiao, but I don't know if Brook's side of the purse is as big.
But lads, think about like what a top Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather when they get paid money. Like, if they sell out Bolton or something, they put 50,000 in a stadium in Bolton and they get 500,000 pay-per-view buys, right? They're not heavyweights. I know it's two British guys. That's probably what they'll do, and it won't be pay-per-view in America, right? So you're talking about 500,000 times, say, 20 quid to make it easy. So 10 million on pay-per-view, which Sky probably take about half of that. There's 5 million left there, and there's a gate on that, say, £50 average head is 2.5 million. So the boys are getting paid, say, to get 50-50, which they won't. It'll be probably £4 or £5 million each. If a big fight with Manny Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao's getting paid $20 million or whatever, and Kel or whoever's on the other side might get 7 or 8 or something. But like we're talking about worldwide, is it a big? It's a much bigger fight when they fight Manny Pacquiao, because that's a British fight, and it's a bigger fight worldwide for boxing when you fight one of the top guys, even though they might make a bit more money. And to me, it's a better fight.
The thing is, though, the Pacquiao fight, sorry to interrupt, Tom, the Pacquiao fight's just not going to happen now. That's the thing.
No, I'm just talking about whether it's the biggest fight or anything. I don't think it's I just think it's a big domestic fight. And the big money is in America. But the other thing I have to say is that, we're talking about Amir as he passes prime, probably, But what about Kell Brook? Has Kell Brook had prime?
No.
He's had no prime.
Well, I guess you could say at the minute his prime is Sean Porter that night, isn't it? But it's hard. That's his genuine prime.
Yeah, that's his prime. He scraped past Sean Porter, who is a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. Sean Porter is a good fighter, not a great fighter, just a B+ fighter. He scraped past Sean Porter away from home. Fair play to him, a good performance, and that's it in his career. That's the only performance he has. When it comes to who's had a better career, it's undoubtedly Amir Khan. But I think Kell will probably beat Khan if he can make weight. So
the thing is, as well, is how much damage did the Golovkin beating do to Kell? That's the other question I'd have to ask. That orbital bone that injury is a nasty injury, and how many times have we seen people take beatings off the likes of Golovkin or Kovalev, them really sort of damaging punches, and they're never the same again. They're just never the same again. You have to wonder how much that is going to take out of Kell Brook. How is he going to be the same fighter now?
I think that's a very, very good argument, Paul, actually. Having said that, and I in no way say this to undermine Amir Khan, but I actually think Kell Brook would probably beat Amir Khan with a little bit in hand at this stage.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think we talk about, past their prime. I mean, I don't know whether Amir Khan is necessarily past his prime. He probably is. But what he definitely is he's had a lot of miles on the clock, a lot of heavy, heavy knockout losses, and a lot of real tough nights. And, we saw the way Canelo, it wasn't nice to watch. For me, I don't think Kell Brook's going to necessarily be in for a tough 12 rounds here. I don't think Kell Brook's going to. I mean, Khan has never been the biggest puncher in the world, certainly not at 147 pounds. Even if he floats around and jabs Kell Brook a bit and wins the first 2 or 3 rounds, I don't think Kell Brook's going to be bust up horribly and, be brutalised before he, gets able to land on Khan. And I just think it's only a matter of time. And unfortunately, I don't think Khan lost him past the first notable punch.
The thing is, I actually agree with you, Tom. I think, as in BG, I think the plain fact is that I don't know whether either of them have actually passed their prime. And if you consider both fighters, just assume that you're going to get the best version of each fighter. Like Kell Brook hasn't been damaged so much by the Triple G beating that he's a different fighter. He's not the same fighter, and he's just the same fighter. And we get maybe the calm from the first 3 rounds of the Canelo fight. I still think Brook is just probably a level above Khan. And for me, the more sort of key point here is that Amir Khan's defense and his chin, that's the key point here. It's kind of like Amir Khan's defense is poor. He leaves his chin hanging out there like he's just, I don't know, waiting for a fly to land on it. And the point is, Kell Brook may not be a Canelo type puncher, but he has got power, and he's definitely got enough power to knock Amir Khan out. And so therefore, you just have to assume he's going to connect on that chin at some point, and when he does, I think it's all over.
He's got as much power as Danny Garcia at 147.
No way. He's at 147, maybe at 147, but certainly not what Danny had at 140.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the way Danny Garcia or even Bradis Prescott, you look at what they did to Amir Khan, and it's
I know, but you can go back to somebody's career and pick. It's a bit unfair on Amir Khan to talk about Bradis Prescott now, because he's a totally different fighter and he's much better. But the one thing I'd say is, like, Kell Brook, I think, is a good, great, very good fighter. You know what I mean? But people talk about him like sometimes. I think he's favourite to win that fight. But the thing is, he's never faced anybody with fast hands. He's only faced one elite fighter, excluding Golovkin, because that's just a kind of a freak show. He's only fought one guy at his weight class, really, and that's Sean Porter, who's not a boxer. Amir's got very fast hands, and if he really, really does not like Kell Brook, it might make him want to concentrate more. But then again, half of the reason why maybe he's not able to concentrate in that Canelo fight, like he is, say, against Devin Alexander, is that he's getting hit so fucking hard. You start getting hit hard, it just takes it out of you. It's draining. So, like, Kell has never fought anybody who's an amazing hand speed, because Khan's got freakish hand speed. So I think, and it's not like Kell Brook is a devastating one-punch fighter. He's not. He's more a kind of a. He's more of a He's a good punch. Like, he's not got a crazy knockout record. Like, he's not Errol Spence or something like that. He's not Keith Thurman. He's more just like that. A good puncher. So, like, I think Amir's has definitely got a way to win it. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not sure. I actually don't think the fight's going to happen myself. I watched an interview with Amir Khan the other day, and he said if it did happen, it'd happen towards the end of 2017 rather than the start. It definitely won't happen at the start. That's what he said. But his body language was all wrong for wanting that fight. To me, he kept going on about Kell ducking his mandatory, and I can't respect that, and blah blah blah. And I just think he's done this for the last few years. There's been, like Tom was saying at the start, Irish Tom, like, there's always a reason. It's like, oh, he's fucking fought nobody. He's not a big enough name, and now he's a big enough name, but I'm not interested, or I've got this issue, reason why it can't happen. I don't think Khan's wanted this fight at any stage. I don't think he wants to fight.
Yeah, I think what it is that a loss for Amir Khan here is career over, because of the rivalry between the two. And I think previously he's always had alternative options. He's always had a way to, come back and to find alternative routes. But I kind of feel at this stage, having suffered the KO losses to Canelo, etc., this is the way back for him. I mean, this is, it's like what Tom was saying about a cash-out fight, but this is the only realistic way for him of winning a fight, gaining a fight of this magnitude. The only other thing to say is, we talk about Amir Khan having the fastest hands and being elusive and being this boxer, and that's all true, but the guy is not difficult to walk down. Not only in the Canelo fight, but cast your minds back to the Chris Algieri fight. That fight became a 50-50 fight for periods of that fight. And Chris Algieri, who's best known as this outside jabber mover type, was able to walk Khan down, get on the inside, and really, really rough him up. And, for me, had Khan in trouble in that fight. And if I look at how Chris Algieri can do that, I just think that Kell Brook, whether you think he's a mega puncher or whether you think he's just a very respectable puncher, I think with all the miles on Amir Khan's clock, he's not going to be able to stay at range for 12 rounds, and he's not going to be able to live with Brook's power for me.
I think I'm going to look for the winner of Thurman Garcia. I think that's what he's holding out for, and I think that's probably why he's saying, "Oh, it won't happen at the start of the year. If it's going to happen, it'll happen towards the end of the year." I personally don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. If it does, it'll happen towards the end of of this year.
One thing back to say what you said, Goss, is like, when have we seen Kell Brook stalk a fighter? Have we seen him really stalk guys?
He boxes, you're right.
Like you could say Frankie Gavin or something, but like, there's Frankie Gavin and then there's Amir Khan, there's different levels. But the other thing, I'm just trying to make a case for Amir. I don't think it's as cut and dried as some people are saying. I do have Kell as a favourite, but the other big thing to me is like there was rumours going around that Kell Brook was walking around at cruiserweight.
Yes, right? I believe those are true as well.
I believe them to be true. So he's coming down. Now, I don't know what he's walking around at the moment, but like he has been walking around, I think, at 14 stone, and also he put on a lot of extra muscle for that GTG fight. He put on, I think, probably 10 pounds of muscle or something like that.
Yeah, didn't he weigh in for the check weight at like 175 or
176? Like, yeah, and he looked ripped, and he had lost like probably about 3 stone to make that weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd actually, that's actually a really, really good point, Tom. I can remember actually saying this at the time. I can't see Kell Brook ever making 147 again, and I think that's a more and more sort of like pertinent point than we're realizing. Can Kell Brook even make that? I mean, what's he going to be at? What weight's it going to be at if it does?
Well, Eddie Hearn said that Amir Khan will only take the fight at 147.
I can't see Kell Brook making 147 again. Not healthily.
He'll make it for the money, Paul. He'll make it for the money. And to be honest with you, I know this sounds a bit weird, but I kind of expect if the fight did happen and Kell Brook made the weight, and regardless of whether he won or lost, I kind of feel like Kell Brook might retire.
After Amir Khan?
I get the feeling with Kell Brook like that I just get the feeling like that he's not that enamored with boxing. You know what I mean?
I guess he'll have made his money at that point after Golovkin and Khan.
Yeah, but he's only, what is he, 28?
I think he's 30 or 31.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I think he's 30, coming on 31.
I mean, I can see him moving up to 154 and trying to get a couple of big fights there, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. Jet has said that before. I'm just not really sure the big fights exist at 154. I mean, Charlo, Andrade, all of these sort of guys, they're not pay-per-view names, are they? I mean, obviously Canelo, if he can get a fight like that, but I believe Canelo's going up to middle again.
Yeah, well, Canelo...
No, he's gone up to super middle.
Well, Canelo's... I don't know if you plan to talk about this or not, but Canelo leapfrogging the mandatory for Billy Joe's bout. I don't know if you're going to talk about this anyway, but...
Yeah. I mean, so Tom's saying he's going up to super middle, but yeah, I don't know about that, Tom. I heard exactly what Paul said, that he's now mandatory for Billy Joe's belt at 160.
He's supposed to be fighting Chavez Jr. at 164 pounds.
I have heard that as well, but the fact they've lobbied so hard to get him the mandatory position for the WBO middleweight surely suggests they're going to go down the Billy Joe route.
No, because if you're a champion at the weight below and you move up, the WBO automatically, I think, make you mandatory. So that's not even a big lobbying thing. And the other thing I'd say is that like they can leave that there from that the big money fight is definitely Chavez Jr. That is a proper big pay-per-view fight. Not that I think it's going to be. Well, I think it's quite an interesting fight because one guy's so much bigger than the other guy. Well, kind of. But like I think that'll sell. And I think it could be a decent fight, and I think that's the one they'll go for ahead of Billy Joe.
I don't think Canelo. I don't think he'll take that fight, Chavez Jr. I mean, let's have it right. He took his bout in a bin, essentially. I know it was not literally, but so to not have to fight Triple G. Now Chavez Jr. is a bigger guy. I don't see it. I don't see it.
That'll do 1 million pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, but Canelo's a cash cow. Canelo could fight pretty much anyone and make a fucking shitload of money. So I can't see him if he's not willing to like less than a year ago, he wasn't willing to move up to 160 and fight Triple G. He's going to move up to fight an even bigger guy now. I think it's much more likely that he dips his toe in the water with somebody like Billy Joe Saunders, who in world boxing terms, people don't really view as a huge threat to Canelo. I was looking at see online today, a lot of people were saying Canelo fucking destroys Billy Joe in a couple of rounds, blah blah blah. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think that's more likely for my money.
Well, I disagree completely.
Chavez Jr. routinely misses weight and comes in, completely drained at bigger weights. So, if it was at 164, like Iris Tom said, I would actually expect Canelo to win that fight with relative ease. Because number one, I'm not sold on quite how good a fighter Chavez Jr. is in the first place. And number two, I think he'll be a ghost of a man at 164.
Well, he looked flabby at 175, and he's coming in at 168 or 169 now, and he's not looking particularly ripped. He's a bit of a lazy bastard when it comes to making weight because he knows he's their side, so he just does it. Against Canelo, though, they'll probably have clauses in that contract to absolutely kill him if he doesn't make it. I think that's definitely the fight that's going to happen. It's like Hay versus Bellew. It's definitely the fight. It makes all the money sense, and I don't think it's a big risk for Canelo, to be honest with you. He's just, even if Chavez Jr. comes in at 168, Canelo rehydrates probably just to nearly as big as Chavez Jr. would, and he's a far superior boxer. And that is a mega fight in America with the Mexican, the Hispanic crowd. A mega fight. And to be honest with you, because there is that kind of unknown thing about the height of the weight, and it does equalize things a bit. So, it's a fight I'd be interested in watching. After watching Billy Joe Saunders there fight the last time, I don't want to see Billy Joe Saunders fighting until he gets his act together, to be honest with you. So, I prefer to see the Chavez Jr., and I definitely think that's going to happen before Billy Joe. But I'm always wrong.
Use my words. Frank will get that fight for one of the big nights on the new ITV platform.
I think it's very possible because I've read articles on how Canelo got that slot, and I don't think it was quite as easy as Iris Tom suggested. I think they had to have a bit of a fight there. I think they're keen on taking that belt, and. From a fan perspective, you guys know that I'm a big Billy Joe Saunders fan, and obviously someone we know very well because obviously we're based in Britain. Legitimately, despite how terrible he looked last time, if he can sort out his weight and if he can sort out his trainer situation, which are big ifs, I acknowledge, I give Billy Joe Saunders a much higher chance of beating Canelo at 160 than I do Chavez at 164. And that's not me saying that I think Billy Joe will beat Canelo. It's just me saying that I think there's a more plausible case. I cannot see Chavez Jr. beating Canelo, not in a month of Sundays, at 164.
I completely agree, Tom. I think basically Billy Joe Saunders, if he's at his best, he's got a good chin, he's got great boxing skills, great movement. I can just see him boxing the head off Canelo. I can see him. I could honestly see him beating Canelo. I really could.
I think so. The problem is to judge him.
Billy Joe's an elite fighter, elite mover when he's on his game. He really is. And he can take a good shot. He can take a really good shot as well. That's the thing.
But lads, remember though that what Chavez Jr. did in that last round to Marvila. What do you call him? What do you call the guy? Argentinian. Martinez, yeah. Remember what he did to Martinez in the last round? So, Canelo's not a dancer, so there's a chance he can get caught. I know his defense is much, much better now, but, you can't say that Chavez doesn't have power and won't have power at that weight. So, he only, he could cause him some damage.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that Sergio Martinez was towards the end of his career. He was naturally a guy who'd moved up from the 154-pound weight class, and he was a guy who we saw pretty much dispatched by Miguel Cotto a fight or two after that. So, and Sergio Martinez still boxed Chavez's ears off him, just got rocked. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad fight. I'd certainly watch it, and it's certainly a fight that would generate interest. I couldn't see Chavez Jr. beating Canelo. I really couldn't. But you never know. You never know. I think any fighter who faces Canelo has to realistically knock him out, because unless you dominate him in the way Floyd Mayweather did, and even then one of the judges scored it a draw. But unless you dominate him completely, the judges just seem to be big fans of Canelo's style. Let's put it that way, because whether a guy like Billy Joe Saunders, who relies on nicking close rounds behind his boxing, whether he can go to Canelo's backyard in front of Canelo's judges and on a Golden Boy show and box like that. Let's say Billy Joe put on the performance he put on in the Chris Eubank Jr. fight or in the John Ryder fight. I think he loses both of those fights.
But I think were they not going to talk about putting it on a leisure centre in Scotland, the Canelo Billy Sanders fight?
Yeah,
Frank might try and bring it over here for his first big show for the ITV platform. You never know.
That was a really. I like the way that you put that, Gossip. That the judges really, really like his style. That's a good way of putting it.
They really, really like his style. It's just it's something about the way he throws the punches they really, really like. Yeah. On a related note, because Paul has raised a good point there about Frank Warren's new deal and Frank Warren bringing over fighters to fight his guys. One of the other topics that I wanted to raise was Hughie Fury versus Joseph Parker. Now, we've discussed this matchup before, but it very much looks like this fight is going to get made. It looks like we're looking at a fight potentially in the next 4 or 5 months. And the suggestion is, from early articles I've read, including certain quotes from Frank Warren, is that if the fight goes to purse bid, they will make substantial effort to bring the fight over to the UK. Now, my understanding is that Joseph Parker massive money over in New Zealand for fights with the Cam and Ruiz. The rumoured purses are in the region of $1 million New Zealand dollars per fight, which possibly isn't massive if you consider global and international heavyweight world title slots. I guess the difficulty is that Hughie Fury is not a guy who's a known commodity in terms of ticket sales. He's probably not a favourite amongst the casual fans. So it's whether they can justify paying those big bucks to get Parker to come over to the UK and to win the purse bids. I guess this is, in my opinion, a key test of Frank Warren's new deal with BT Sports and Box Nation to see whether they're going to have the budget and whether they're going to have the inclination to make a fight like this and to pay real money to get a big show on. So, Paul, what's your take on that? Do you think that Frank's now in a position where he can make moves like that, even for a fighter who, probably isn't the biggest ticket seller?
Well, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at $1 million New Zealand dollars is about 500,000, 550. So that's not a lot, really, considering if you Joseph Parker, you've got to be looking at that and thinking, fucking hell, I'm fighting top 10 guys here. Carlos Takam, you could argue, is a top 10 heavyweight, or certainly you could argue he was a top 10 heavyweight at the time. And so, I can see. Then you factor into it the BT thing. I didn't realise BT had become as big as they were. Apparently, they're even bigger than Sky now. For them to launch something like this deal that Frank seems to have made, in 30 shows a year and whatnot, some of them shows are going to have to be showstoppers. They're going to have to be something that really brings people on board. And so they've got to be going for big fights like that. I mean, I can see it. I can see it getting made, and I can see it coming over here. I can also see Hughie boxing the head off of him. To be honest, judging from Parker's last performance, I wasn't impressed with Parker at all in that Ruiz fight. I thought it could have gone either way. Some people were saying Ruiz won it. I thought Parker just won it, but I certainly wouldn't have, argued vehemently with somebody that said, no, come on, Ruiz won that fight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was going to be the case coming into it. And I know you didn't either. We talked about it before, and I think most people thought Parker would win that fight quite easily.
Yeah.
I think if the Parker from that night turns up, I think Hughie Fury will absolutely box the head off of him. I really do.
I agree, and this makes me think that Frank should lay out of the big box, because even if it's a losing, even if Frank sells out 3 or 4 million quid and makes a loss on the event, what he'll then have is a world heavyweight champion in his stable with 30 shows a year to reel him out and to make big profit. So what I'm hoping is that the new deal they have will give them the option and the sort of realistic returns in the long term to make an investment like that, because I think it's great for British boxing if they can do that. And I also think, given the way Hughie fights, I mean, we're all Hughie fans here, but let's be honest, he isn't a George Foreman when it comes to punching power. So the fight is most likely going to go to distance. Parker's shown no chin issues in his career to date. And Parker, even though I'd expect Hughie to win, I agree with you, but Parker has certain attributes that Hughie doesn't have. And Parker is possibly the more eye-catching combination puncher. So my concern is, this is a fight that's going to go to distance. Parker's got a slight power advantage. He's got a slight combination advantage. He's got a slight hand speed advantage. If this is in front of judges who really, really, really like Parker's style, and if this is in front of Parker's home fans, that could be a huge negative for Hughie winning this fight.
It was in New Zealand. You mean if
it's in New Zealand? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hughie's not a huge knockout puncher, but he is a really, really good body puncher, and I'm not sure Parker's ever been hit to the body the way Hughie goes to the body. Hughie's a hellacious fucking body puncher, man. Jesus Christ! Some of the ways I've seen him drop a few guys with body shots, and I don't think Parker's ever been in with anybody that moves like that throws body shots like that. And although I do agree, if Parker is probably more eye-catching, he's got like that sort of like fast hands, and the way he throws his jab and everything. It's probably a bit more eye-catching and whatnot. And if it's in New Zealand, I think it'd be hard for anyone to get a decision over Joseph Parker, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I think if Hughie fights him, he'll school him. And even if it's in New Zealand, which I don't think it will be for the money, look at it's not like your man was robbed in New Zealand. Ruiz, that was a close fight. One of the times you get robbed is when you've got like a big promoter going up against a small promoter and things like that. But it's not like there's huge money in Joseph Parker, in Joseph Parker's career. So the judges will follow the money. And the other thing is, like, he's Hughie's just likely. Hughie to me is likely to just completely school him, because he's got really long arms, huge height and reach advantage, great body punching, world class jab, the best feet in heavyweight boxing, probably better than Tyson's. He's got so many attributes. And to be honest with you, Joseph Parker, I thought, was really average. That's about the best I could say about him in his title fight. So to me, that if that fight happens, that is just going to be great value. That's like a real value bet, because they'll probably have Parker slight favorite or something.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think Parker would probably be quite a favourite, because Hughie Fury hasn't had many fights. Well, he hasn't really had any fights at that level. Parker's a world champion. Parker's beat more top 10 guys. I think. I mean, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Tom. I think. I personally think Hughie will win that fight quite easily. I mean, there's an argument to say. I believe there's an argument to say that Joseph Parker's actually been sort of found out a little bit as he stepped up in levels. Not to slag him off or whatever. I like Joseph Parker, but he didn't. I think Takam put it on him. Ruiz put it on him, and he did not like it at all. His output certainly went downhill, and he hasn't looked like the same fighter since he stepped. Even that Jason Bergman fight, I can remember thinking, "Whoa, hold on a second, you're getting caught a bit too much here." I wasn't expecting to see that because we all thought, he looked like the goods, obviously. But I think there is an argument to say he's kind of been found out a little bit since he stepped up. I don't know if
I agree completely. I think he's very overrated. I think he's, I think he won't. I put it this way: he's not going to be champion in 2017. He's not going to have his hands on that belt. No, not a hope. Imagine David Haye got his hands on him.
Yeah. I mean, the weaknesses in Parker's game have become more and more glaring as he stepped up. And I'm someone who believes it's good for a young fighter to have those tough fights against the tough top 10 level opponents at this stage of their careers. But the difference between Parker and other young fighters is that Parker's now the WBO champion. Parker's now in a sort of elite position, and he's going to be taking, some of the real big fights. And, with that in mind, I just wonder whether they've left enough time to iron out some of those deficiencies, because those deficiencies are still coming up time and time again, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Let's move it on to one of the other heavyweight questions. Now, there's been lots of discussion about this. As you guys know, the AJ versus Vladimir Klitschko fight is for both the WBA belt and the IBF belt. Now, IBF will immediately impose a mandatory, which will be Kubrat Pulev. And we understand the WBA are due to impose a mandatory, which will be Luis Ortiz. So the winner of this fight could potentially find themselves in a situation where they may have to vacate one of the two belts because they're going to have mandatories forced upon them by both the WBA and the IBF, and clearly they won't be able to take both. Now, Eddie Hearn was asked about this in an interview with IFL TV, and he said, to be honest, if they go and beat Vladimir Klitschko at Wembley Stadium, how attractive is a fight against Kubrat Pulev in a mandatory position? Is that actually going to be a fight that generates legit interest? So Eddie Hearn kind of potentially gave a bit of weight to the suggestion that they may actually vacate the belt. Paul, what's your take on this scenario? Do you think this is the governing bodies being overly aggressive here?
I've got a feeling that if AJ comes out on top in that fight, that they'll be slightly less aggressive than they have been in the past. That's what I think. I think they are more aggressive or less aggressive depending on who it is that's holding the belt. Personally, and AJ is the golden boy. AJ is the guy that, in all honesty, other than Canelo and a couple of maybe Manny, maybe my point is there's not many bigger sort of like cash cows in boxing right now than Anthony Joshua. And I think if he was to come out on top, I think it'd be less likely that they'd end up with a scenario like that.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Do you think that they would come down like a ton of bricks on Vladimir then, given that, it's perceived to be that he's at the end of his career and potentially there isn't the sort of longevity of future earnings that come from Vladimir?
Well, possibly, but then again, they didn't seem to come down on him like a ton of bricks during the well, certainly the IBF didn't seem to come down on him like a ton of bricks when he held the titles, because as I recall it, he he didn't always fight his mandatories on time during that 10 years. They didn't seem to. Having said that, they may do. It just, I don't know. The IBF are weird. I mean, Tyson Fury wins the title. They strip him within, was it days or was it weeks or what was it?
It was like a week or two, wasn't it?
Yeah, like ridiculous. And then Charles Martin wins the title when Glasgow's leg falls off or whatever the fuck happened there. Yeah. And the IBF make a statement saying that they're going to give him a year to, and I quote, enjoy his time as champion. I don't know if anybody remembers that they actually made a statement to say that they weren't going to enforce the mandatory and whatnot. Hence the Joshua fight happened and whatnot. That was kind of like one of the things that allowed it to happen. They never enforced any kind of so it's kind of like very. The way the governing bodies go on is very strange. It's just very, very, very strange. So really, it's anyone's guess what they're going to do. I think it's unlikely that Anthony Joshua wins those 2 belts and one of them tries to strip him straight away. I think it's unlikely.
Understood. Jet has actually just joined the podcast. I didn't actually realise that he joined. Jet,
but I think he's rejoined.
Oh no! Don't say he's been on for like half an hour or something.
He's been on for about 15-20 minutes, I think.
Oh, Jet, my apologies, mate. I honestly I didn't realise at all. Happy New Year to you. How you doing?
I'm not having a good start, mate. Being ignored.
Have you been on for ages?
I've been on for about 20 minutes. Let's put it that way. I didn't want to
I'm
be
really
rude.
sorry.
No, it's fine. I didn't want to be rude and interrupt. My apologies for being late.
Sorry, I'm being absent-minded, obviously. Sorry, mate. Well, I was going to say we've just started talking about Vladimir versus AJ, but obviously you'll have heard about that. It's been on for the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
What's your take on this chat about both the IBF and WBA enforcing mandatories? Do you agree with Paul that you don't think this will be upheld if it's Joshua? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I know, obviously, Klitschko wants the WBA super belt to be up for grabs and that sort of stuff, and for it to be unification. Why, I don't really know, but it doesn't really make too much sense on Klitschko's behalf. But it's a bit weird because AJ, does he really need a unification for this fight to be as big as it is? I wouldn't say so. I think he could probably get away with it just being an IBF title defense, a voluntary defense, and that's that. They probably will be slightly lenient on AJ since he makes a ton in terms of money, endorsements, all that stuff. So I think they'll probably be they'll give him a bit of the rub of the green, I guess. I know it's a bit unfair since what happened to Tyson Fury, and Klitschko's got away with it for years, but I think he definitely he's a good sort of poster boy. I think especially holding the IBF belt, they're probably proud for him to hold the belt, I guess. So yeah, I think they might be slightly lenient towards him, but I mean, Eddie Hearn or AJ could turn around and go, you know what, we don't want to pay the sanctioning fee for the WBA belt. We don't want it, and that way they could avoid Ortiz, avoid him, and avoid paying the sanctioning fee as well. He gets more money out of his purse and whatnot. He'll get a big purse nonetheless anyway. But how boxing is and how boxing politics works. He's obviously going to pay for it, and then he's going to give up one of the belts most likely. And then because obviously Ortiz, if he's still with Matchroom, probably that's a easy fight. That's an in-house fight for Eddie Hearn to make. But I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know. They should just get the fight on really instead of talking about vacating belts and the belt situation. It's a bit far-fetched if I'm honest.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I completely agree. It's one of those where this is the bad side of boxing, unfortunately, and I think you guys are probably completely right that there'll be conversations going on behind the scenes. There'll be politics at work, and with Anthony Joshua being a young guy who's highly marketable with a huge future ahead of him, it seems less likely that he'll be stripped. I mean, with another thing in mind, I would say that obviously now Eddie Hearn manages and promotes Luis Ortiz. I guess it would be fairly easy for them to have some sort of step aside position with Ortiz for the WBA. So if Joshua did want to retain both his belts, he could probably take the Pulev fight first. But I just wonder whether fights with Ortiz and Pulev are going to appeal, or whether they'll go for the real mega bucks fights that Eddie Hearn's suggesting they will do. I'm unclear. Tom, what's your take on it, mate?
Sorry, what are we talking about? Whether AJ will fight Pulev and...
what AJ will do if he's to beat Klitschko, do you think he'll be stripped like there's some suggestion, or do you think that he'll take fights with Pulev and Ortiz?
Yeah, well, I think his IBF mandatory, well, whichever mandatory will be up first. Look, if he's beaten Klitschko, he should be able to take on Ortiz. That's the way I look at it. So I don't know which mandatory will be first. Probably be his IBF.
Yeah,
IBF. So he'd probably fight Pulev. That's a much lower level fight they're trying to make already as one of their fights before Klitschko. So I think they'll make that. And then if he has to fight, I think he'll do it. Look, if he beats Klitschko and he's the real deal, why should he not fight Ortiz? That's the way I look at it. I think it's a big fight if it does happen for the hardcores. And, I think I don't think you can get away with the argument of saying, "Oh, the fees are too high." That's bullshit. That's just a way of ducking somebody. That's just an excuse. Because I think people will say, "Oh, you're ducking Ortiz," and you get a name as he's ducking. And I don't think Anthony Joshua, in fairness to him, I don't think he's the kind of guy who wants to duck people. I think he's more the kind of guy who would try and fight them. So, and he's got a lot of physical advantages over Ortiz. So I think he'd fight both of them. Normally what happens when you unify, they all have the governing bodies take turns having their mandatories. So I don't see why there should be any problems with it. If he's able to beat Klitschko, Ortiz is easy work.
Yeah, the thing is as well, with regards what you said, BG, about Eddie Hearn being Ortiz's promoter as well, and that making it easier. I'm not sure Ortiz would be up for stepping aside. I mean, like, the guy's not getting any younger. He's clearly moved over to Matchroom with the view. I mean, he wants a world title shot, doesn't he? I mean, like, it doesn't take a genius to work out what his plans are. Get a big payday and hopefully a world title shot, and then cash out. So, I kind of think, it's unlikely that. I mean, who's he going to fight anyway? I mean, if we do assume that he steps aside, or they try and get Ortiz and Pulev to step aside, who do you think they'd be stepping aside in favour for? I assume you're saying in favour of some sort of big money fight. Hey, Wilder.
Well, Eddie Hearn in his interview suggested Wilder. Now, I personally think that fight's unrealistic. I just don't see it happening. But that was the fight that Eddie Hearn was suggesting they may vacate the belt on the IBF side for in order to take.
Yeah.
And, certainly I don't think any of us would be accusing Joshua of ducking Pulev if he fought Wilder, right?
But here, a mandatory a unification takes precedence over a mandatory.
Yeah.
So if he fights Wilder next, he'll keep his belt.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, you'd hope so, because you wouldn't want to see people getting stripped, would you? But you just wonder with the IBF. Like, IBF are known as the organisation who are the most aggressive with their mandatories. I mean, they were the ones who stripped Tyson Fury instantaneously, I think. And that's why we ended up with Charles Martin having the belt, and then Anthony Joshua being able to buy the belt effectively.
I wonder how politics played a role there, because have they got other form of of doing that, or the history of doing that with other title holders, where they strip them within a week? I'm not sure they have. I'm not sure that Tyson Fury's mouth didn't play a huge part in that.
That's a good point, Paul. I mean, certainly that was the most highly publicised incident. And is Kell Brook the IBF champion? They appear to have been a bit more lenient with him of late, don't they? So you're probably right that maybe that was a political thing as well. Certainly, the speed with which they stripped Tyson Fury was something that I personally am not aware of happening elsewhere. So, yeah, okay, interesting stuff. Let's move it on, guys. Let's talk about 2017. Obviously, not a lot of boxing going on at the minute, as I said at the start of the show. So let's have a look about your hopes and dreams for boxing in 2017. Jet, seeing as you haven't been on much today, we'll start with you. Give us your sort of hopes for 2017. What you'd like to see happening within the sport. What fights you'd like to see made, etc.
I mean, it's a tough one because there's a lot of things that probably need to change in order for boxing to keep growing and keep developing. It's been on an upwards trajectory, I'd say. Over the years, it's been getting back to what it used to be, I guess. Some of the things I'd like to see in 2017 is the big fights actually getting made, regardless of who it is. The big fights need to get made. Whatever problems that the promoters and that sort of stuff have now, they need to shelve that and actually start working together and making the fights happen for the fans. I think that's probably the sort of main sort of qualm I have at this current minute, and I hope it really changes in 2017. Obviously, you have a few fights there. Golovkin Canelo, loads of people want to see that. Now Inoue versus Roman Gonzalez. That's another big fight at the lower weight classes. There's a lot of sort of fights. Amir Khan, Kell Brook domestically. Loads of people want to see that. So there are a lot of fights there, but for me, it'd probably be Gonzalez, Inoue. That's probably one of the bigger fights. I think Inoue would probably win that fight, but if they can make it, if they can make it happen, why not? It'd be interesting to see. And I mean, as I said, there's other things that definitely need to change in 2017, but definitely the big fights getting made is a massive thing, I think.
Definitely. Jet, just we'll bring you in for another word on this because you didn't get a say earlier. Frank Warren and BT Sports and Box Nation, potentially creating fights like Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo, potentially fights like Hughie Fury Parker over in the UK. How optimistic are you for that to make a big difference in 2017?
Yeah, I mean the BT Sport sort of platform now is a game changer, definitely. Obviously, I'm not sure who watches football or whatnot, but with the Champions League sort of set up, that loads of the BT Sport, pretty much all of BT Sport, is all the Champions League is covered by BT Sport. So they're quite, they have a large portion of the market as well in terms of sport in general. But boxing, if they can kind of broadcast people like Billy Joe Saunders and Hughie Fury, that'd be really good because the exposure that they get is very little compared to the sort of George Groves, James DeGales. Those sort of guys are definitely by far and beyond have a larger profile than someone like a Billy Joe Saunders or a Hughie Fury, definitely, I think. But I mean the fights being realistic is a tough one. I know I was actually on when you guys were talking about Fury versus Parker. That's a definite fight that could happen. I don't know I know you said Frank Warren would probably try and bid a substantial amount if it goes to purse bids. I can't see that. Historically, I can't see that from Frank Warren. I know he has this backing for BT Sport, but historically, would he really put a couple of million quid in Hughie Fury? It's very, very tough to see. I know it probably is a wise investment, but it's a tough one. Platform-wise, it can happen. That's not to say it can't happen, but will Frank actually do it is another question. It's a big one. I don't know if he really will do it. Billy Joe Saunders Canelo. I was also on when you were talking about Canelo being WBO mandatory, what Irish Tom said is correct. You know, when you go up, you ask the WBO, can I be mandatory in another weight class, and they automatically grant it to you. So yeah, he got a bit of the easy straw there, I guess. But you know, it is what it is. I think he has to face 2 mandatories now. So Canelo and Kurt Zide. I think he's a Armenian guy, or he's a, you know, he's from somewhere. But so he has to face 2 mandatories now. You know, probably his own fault because, you know, he's been inactive. He probably should have been fighting, and probably a bit of Frank Warren's fault. Should have got him out, you know, and got him out there probably within the 6 months after he was champion. Keep him fit, keep him going. But the fight could definitely happen. It's a big money fight for Billy Joe Saunders if he can get it. And yeah, I guess if it happens and he fights the way maybe he did against Akavov, he's in for a rude awakening. And I think he will be losing that WBO belt if he doesn't buck up his ideas very soon.
Definitely. I mean, if he fights like he did against Akavov, that is easy work for a guy like Canelo. I mean, like easy work.
Yeah. And his conditioning is a big problem as well. So Canelo will just kind of bulldoze him later down the straight and probably stop him late. I think if he fights the way he did, you know, if he fights, you know, above and beyond what he probably did against, you know, Chris Eubank Jr. or, you know, Spike O'Sullivan, those guys are lower level guys, yes, but if he can fight way above that, then he's got a chance against Canelo. Canelo's there to be outboxed, but you know, if he fights like how he fought recently, then he's in for a rude awakening.
Absolutely. Okay, good stuff, Jet. Tom, your sort of hopes for 2017, fights you'd like to get made, that sort of stuff, mate.
I'd like to see some decent more heavyweight action. There's a lot of good heavyweight fights. Don't really care about cruiserweight, to be honest. I want to see the Kovalev Ward rematch. Want to see James DeGale see if he can clean out that division.
Yes.
At middleweight, I want to see Canelo GGG. And Canelo Eubank GGG, although that won't happen in a whole year of Sundays. 154, don't really care too much. Probably want to see Andrade fight a decent fight. 147, like to see Pacquiao fighting somebody decent. 140. I'd like to see Terence Crawford go to 147. That's what I'd really like to see. That'd probably be my wish for the year. I'd like to see Fury back. And I want to see Danny Garcia or Mikey Garcia clean out 135. I'd like to see Garcia versus Lomachenko. That's a good fight. I pick Garcia to win that fight. And you know, maybe Rigo actually get a decent fight. Carl Frampton maybe unifying a belt. There you go.
Absolutely. Tom, just when you raise it, did you see the article this week saying Frampton's intending to step up in weight class again this year?
Well, I know he's intending to step up again, but I don't know if it's this year.
It's on irishboxing.com.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, to me, it seems very ambitious to do it this year.
You know, if he's going to do it this year, that means he's only going to fight once or twice more, and then he's going to retire.
Right. You don't think he's got much longevity at 130?
No, and I think he said that before. He'd like to, at the end of his career, go up and try and win a belt at 130. 130, yeah. So, like, I think, you know, if he does it, I think that's right at the end of his career. And it's not like he's a big 126, you know. And who's he going to go up and fight at 130? I don't know. Like, I think he's got a lot of physical disadvantages at 130. That's really the maximum of his fighting range, if you ask me. But I wouldn't believe it.
Sorry to everyone watching if you're having to see the odd image of me eating my dinner. I've had to come straight from work to do the podcast tonight. So, yeah, hadn't had a chance to fuel up. So my apologies if it's not the most attractive viewing, but we'll keep it rolling. Paul, your wishes for 2017, mate, and fights you'd like to see get made?
I'd like to see AJ Wilder. I think that's if with the heavyweight division as it stands at the moment, without Tyson Fury back in it and whatnot, I think that's probably the best fight that can be made at heavyweight, other than the fights that like obviously AJ Klitschko's. If AJ beats Klitschko, for me, it's hard to make a case for anybody else being the man at heavyweight. Really, if AJ beats Klitschko, I mean, I can't. I can't see how you can make an argument that he's not the top heavyweight in the world if he does that. So
I agree.
AJ Wilder then is obviously the obvious fight. I'd like to see following in Tom's Irish Tom's method, just travel downwards. Cruiserweight, I'd like to see Usyk Breedis. I think that's probably the best fight that can be made at cruiserweight. Those guys seem to fight each other. Breedis looks good. I think Usyk probably looks a step above just about everybody at that weight. Trying to think. A lot of the fights that I want to see have already been mentioned. Obviously, Ward Kovalev too. Ideally, I thought Kovalev won that first fight, and I think while I think Ward is probably gonna have a bit of an advantage over what he had in the first fight, I think there's also another way to look at it, is that Kovalev will just go all out and really try and smash him up, because he's going to realise from his perspective, he got robbed, and so he's going to come into that fight with the idea that he's going to have to really smash Andre Ward up, and that could make for a really good fight. I'd like to see Triple G, Canelo. I don't think it'll happen, but I'd still like to see it. I would like to see Kell Brook, Amir Khan, even though I'm not as hyped for it as I would have been before the two of them got the heads smashed in, but I'm still quite would quite like to see that fight. The other thing I was thinking about earlier is like up and coming fighters, guys that are coming through domestically that I think could maybe sort of like rise to world level this year. I'd be interested to see what everybody else thinks about this as well. That guys that really one guy really came to mind is I'm a really big fan of Liam Walsh. I think he's mandatory for Pedraz's IBF title, and I suppose it's not beyond the realms of possibility that could happen this year. I think Liam Walsh is a fantastic talent. He seems to be ambidextrous, just switches seamlessly. And he's really sort of versatile. He fights really well on the inside. He can fight on the outside. Good jab, accurate. I think he's got a lot of skills, a lot about him, Liam Walsh. Andrew Selby for me looks the goods as well. He's still young and still inexperienced, but I'd like to see him, rise. Maybe raised in levels this year. Perhaps not world level just yet, but I'd like to see him, fight somebody decent. I'm not sure who, but it's hard to even like imagine how you would guide a career like Selby's, because whilst he's only had a few fights, it's still he's got a lot of amateur experience, hasn't he? And so it's kind of like, it's not like just, bringing through a fighter that's totally green. His skills are sort of above and beyond the 7-fight novice, but at the same time, you don't want to throw him in at the deep end. So it's interesting how some of the younger guys, Anthony Yard. I like Anthony Yard as well. So just interested to see what everybody else's thoughts on that as well are.
Yeah.
Upcoming fighters. There's obviously there's a Scottish kid as well.
Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor, yeah.
So from my perspective, Josh Taylor certainly right at the top of the tree. Want to see him in some big fights. I'd like to see O'Hara Davies, Derry Matthews, which I suspect O'Hara will win, potentially with the winner. Them fighting Josh Taylor. I think that would be really good. I'd like to see Bradley Skeet move above British level and get up to world level. I agree with yourself about Anthony Yard. I think he's a real talent. The guy, has big power and is a legit boxer at light heavyweight. I'd like to see him pushed. One fight that I think is a fantastic fight that I suspect very well may get made. Liam Walsh versus Liam Williams. Sorry, my bad. Liam Williams versus Liam Smith. I could see that being a massive headline for one of the new BT Sports bills. And, for me, that is a real tough matchup that I would struggle to call a winner on. So that would be another real mouth-watering one for me. I don't know if anyone else has got anything else to add in response to Paul there. Paul, you've touched the room, mate.
I know. I just like to say that it's quite cold outside tonight.
It's quite cold.
Thanks for that insightful comment, Irish.
Who are you guys picking for Liam Walsh versus Liam Williams? Sorry, Liam Smith versus Liam Williams.
Liam Williams.
Liam Williams.
Yeah.
Wow.
If Liam Walsh versus Liam Smith gets made, I'm fucking complaining because that's just ridiculous.
What about you, Paul? Would you side with Liam Williams over Liam Smith?
Yeah, just sort of like narrowly, but it's a pick 'em, innit?
It really is. It really is. Okay, guys. Final topic of the night that I wanted to raise was boxing betting in 2017. So before the show, I sat down and I looked at some of the best odds for some of the big fights in the new year. So I'm just going to read these out to you. I've picked about 10 fights, so bear with me might take me a minute or two, but I want to read them out and just have a think about whether any of these stand out to you and if any of these are ones you'd like to be considering in the new year. Okay, James DeGale versus Badu Jack. James DeGale 2-5 on, Badu Jack 12-5. Pedraza 4-7. Gervonta Davis 7-4. Moving into late January, Carl Frampton 8-11, Leo Santa Cruz 5-4. Arthur Spilka 8-11, Dominic Breazeale 5-4. Tony Bellew 9-2, David Hay 1-5. Keith Thurman 4-9, Danny Garcia 2-1. Joshua 1-2, Vladimir Klitschko 15-8. And just as a point of interest, Canelo 1-14, Chavez Jr. 7-1, Kell Brook 4-5, Amir Khan 5-4. So those are the ones I've picked out. For me, just going back through those, Kell Brook at 4-5. If that fight were to be made, I think would be an excellent bet. Vladimir Klitschko at 15-8. I just think that's crazy value. And you can get 3-1 on Vladimir Klitschko to win by knockout, which I also think is a very attractive bet. Danny Garcia at 2-1 versus Keith Thurman. That's one that I like the look of as well. I think that's a bit of value there. David Hay to knock out Tony Bellew is one that I'll be looking at. I think Arthur Spilka to beat Dominic Breazeale is a crazy price. I've got Spilka well ahead in terms of talent. I also think Carl Frampton at 8-11. I really think Carl Frampton should be a shorter favourite than that. I'd have him about the the 1 to 2 mark personally. So if you don't mind, we'll start by handing it over to Iris. Tom, Iris, did any of those particularly surprise you or stand out, mate?
You can get Carl Frampton. I've already got him at 13-8 to win on points, which is that's a really insane price. You can get that on Paddy Powers. I don't know if it's still available. Also, David Hay to win. You can get what did I get him at 4-11 to win by KO. That's locked down. That's very easy money. I know it's a short price, but it's very easy money. Who else is there in that? I think Klitschko. I think Klitschko is value. I don't know if I'm picking Klitschko, but I think Klitschko knockout 3-1. I think that's. I don't know if it's value, but I think that's probably a little bit of value, not a lot of value in it. But what else do we have? I think James DeGale is going to win that fight very easy. I don't think he'll win it by a lot. Maybe he'll only win it by 8 rounds to 4. But I think DeGale is by far the better boxer there. So who else? What else do we have? We have Mike. What's Mikey Garcia against Latikanen? Is he 2-5?
I don't actually have that, but if you bear with me, I can have a check and see if I can pull it up as you guys are talking.
Yeah, I think Mikey Garcia is 2-5 against Latikanen. I think that's the bet. I think that's a great bet.
Do you guys know a date for that?
Same date as Frampton versus Santa Cruz on the undercard.
Oh, okay. Bear with me.
Even better, 3-7. You get Mikey Garcia 3-7.
I've got him at 2-5 here.
I'm looking at box odds checker. You can get him at what's the best price? 3-7. You can get him at, or 2-5. That kind of a price, you know.
Yeah.
So that's or even 4-11 on Sky Sports. Yeah. So but they're so that's the worst price. Sorry. So 2-5 or 3-7. Like that's a great bet. I think Mikey Garcia is miles better than Dejan Zlatikanen. I think that's a very easy win for Mike Garcia. So I think that's a great value bet. And if Hughie Fury fights, is there a price up for Hughie Fury yet? Against
let me have a look. They may have some speculative prices at the end. So let me just you guys keep it rolling. I'll just have a look for that. No.
Anything above, I think, 1-3 for Hughie is good value.
Anything above 1-3. Oh yeah, mate. Joseph Parker, Hughie Fury. There is a market. Let me just pull it up. So the only bookies that are doing it are Paddy Power. They've gone evens Parker, 5-6 Hughie. So they make Hughie a slight favourite and have him 5-6. I would suggest those odds will change dramatically dependent on the location of the fight.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think a lot of people don't rate Hughie yet, so I think you might be surprised. I think there's hardcores like us who rate him, but the general public will go, Hughie is not much good. I think the gambling public aren't waiting for that to come in. I think that's, I make Hughie an 80% favourite there, so I think that's great value. So what is it, 5-6 Hughie or evens?
Tom, I may have to stop you there, mate. The signal's gone absolutely terribly. But just if you're still listening, it's 5-6 Hughie, evens Joseph Parker.
Okay.
Oh, Tom, yeah, you might have to come off and on again, mate. I'm afraid this is a new low even for you. Yes. Let me pass the.
Tom's got his nippers. What was them things you used to have when you were a kid? The Castle Grayskull thing with the little microphone.
There we go.
Walkie-talkie. Bad connection.
My favourite comment goes to Tetley in the chat, who has put exterminate.
Oh my god.
Jet, let me bring you in, mate. I know you're a hopeless gambling addict. Your take on those odds, mate?
There's some good odds there. You said Spilka. Spilka probably put a bet on Spilka.
Do you agree with me there? I've just got him miles
He's
above
way
Brazil.
better. Brazil is awful. He's a punching bag, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
He lost for me. He lost against he beat Mansour on a technicality. Because obviously Mansour couldn't breathe, so he had to retire. He was getting busted up bad in that fight.
Mansour
what was the
his
other
tongue
fight?
in half, didn't he?
Sorry?
Didn't Mansour bite his tongue in half?
Yeah, because he can't have he doesn't have a mouth guard because of some tooth issue or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so,
he's got one of them mouth guards that's only the bottom half or only the top half or something. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he kind of won for me on a technicality. Mansour was, I think, on his well on his way to stopping Brazil. To be honest, Fred Cassie, I think he got away with a gift decision that fight. I mean, Spilker, and I know he obviously got KO'd by Brian Jennings, and he lost to Deontay Wilder. No harm in losing to Wilder. Jennings is a pretty decent fighter as well. But Spilker for me, that's an easy win for Spilker. I'll probably be putting a decent bet on Spilker. AJ versus Klitschko, I'll probably put a decent bit of money on Klitschko to win, probably by KO. I think he's still, there's still life in him, and I think AJ stepping up by far and beyond, anything he's ever faced in his career, 2-3 levels at least. So I'll be putting a bet on probably Vlad. Who was the other ones? James DeGale, not the best value, but I think he'll probably easily win that fight.
I don't think that's value though. I think that's about right, that price.
Yeah, I won't be putting anything on DeGale.
James DeGale's not a fighter to trust either.
He might gas horribly in the fight.
He won the Groves fight, for example, but I think the performances he puts in from time to time allow him to get involved in unnecessarily close fights.
Yeah, I think he put something on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was on Sky Sports, and he said, "I've been working on my strength and conditioning for this fight. You're going to see me faster. You're going to see me with better hand speed. You're going to see me with better foot movement. You're going to see me with more power in this fight." So let's see how he makes the weight. He does have a tendency.
He's in the best shape I've ever seen him, actually.
Yeah, so let's see. Hopefully he retains and wins the WBC belt. We'll probably get to see him versus Callum Smith over here or something like that, or him versus George Groves if Groves wins a version of the WBA belt.
Lads, am I back?
No, you're not back.
Fuck.
Oh, sorry, Irish. You might want to restart the net. That was bad. I just see Gossip grinning in the corner. What was the other fights? God. Mansour's fighting, I think, soon as well. He's fighting Kaufman, if I'm correct.
Mansour Kaufman, and I think the bookies have that line about even.
Yeah, I'd probably go Mansour with in that fight. To be honest, if it's good value, I'd probably go with Mansour.
What though? I like Mansour, but I mean the guy must be nearly 50 now, and he's been out for a long time since that Brazil fight, and he's got serious miles on the clock now. Hard fights.
Yeah. I think he's probably a step. If it was, I thought he.
Modern broadcaster said in the chat, Tom's comeback was worse than David Hay.
Like a bad toe. Oh, God,
I love it. Man. We must remember to tell Tom that when he re-emerges.
If he re-emerges.
No,
but there's some things said Garcia. I'd probably put a bet on Zlatikanin. I'll be honest. I think Mikey Garcia didn't look, his best in his last fight, comeback fight. And I think Zlatikanin, he's a serious operator at 135. Obviously, he holds a WBC belt. I might be tempted to put, a few quid on him. Carl Frampton, I'll probably be putting a bet on as well. He really grew on me in that fight, and I know two or three of us picked. I know me and you, Gossip, we picked Leo Santa Cruz, didn't we? So he left us with a bit of egg on our face.
Yeah.
But yeah, he really grew on me in that fight, and I think the stuff that you were talking about moving to 130 is tough. But if he can get a vacant belt, or he can get one of the weaker champions, I wouldn't be surprised if he could beat. If Rocky Martinez held a belt, obviously he doesn't anymore, but a champion like that who's a bit older, he's there for the taking. I think he could probably beat one of those guys. But yeah, there's some good value there, so I'll probably be throwing away my money down the pisser and losing some money most likely on some fights. But
what about Thurman Garcia, Jet? I mean, Garcia at
yeah.
2-1 seems very wide for me.
Do you know what? I saw some comments earlier in the chat. I don't know if you were keeping up with it, but they were talking about obviously Brook and Khan and Thurman. Thurman beats them both. Obviously, there was an Irish Tom was saying something about him being a big puncher or something like that. He's not as big. Brook being not a big puncher compared to Keith Thurman. I don't think Keith Thurman's a big puncher. I'll be honest. I don't think this is going to go. I don't think this is going to. I think it's going to go the distance. Sorry. I think it'll be, for me, it's not a fight. Danny Garcia looks average, but maybe it's a bit harder to fight him. He's got good timing, good accuracy, I think, as well. But, Thurman, for me, he's going to be on the back foot kind of just with the jab and move and trying to do what he did against Thurman. So I think it's going to go the distance. I don't rate his power, I'll be honest. I don't think, he didn't really... it'd be ignorant of me to say he didn't rock Sean Porter because he hurt him a few times, but I don't think he's this one-punch knockout artist. For me, he does a lot more boxing rather than try and trade. I know he traded in the Sean Porter fight, but I don't rate his power, and I think it's going to go the distance. I'd probably, I think he's going to win, but Garcia's live in the fight. Not that I like Garcia, but he's live in the fight. He, as you always say, he's one of those guys that always look bad, but they tend to be a lot harder to beat for whatever reason. So, 2-1, a bit of value, I'd say, but not enough to get me to put some money down on him because I don't think he's got a realistic chance in the fight for me. Maybe a 20%, 25%. I think Thurman's a heavy favorite in that fight, but I just don't think it'll come by KO. I think it'll be by points.
Interesting. Tom, are you back, mate?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, even worse.
Fuck.
Okay.
That's like the worst I've ever heard.
You know what? I just see Gossip's face, and it's just like him.
Tom, I don't reply to this because we don't need to hear that again, mate. But the comment in the chat was Tom's comeback was worse than David Hayes. Let's bring Paul back in the interim. Paul, I know you're not the biggest gambling man out there, but I'm sure after you've heard, Irish Tom's missus is currently downloading something at present. So hopefully once that's done, we can bring him back in. But Paul, I know you're not the biggest gambling man in the world, mate, but obviously you've heard the chat we've been having there. Does anything sort of stand out to you? Anything catch your attention and seem a bit out of the ordinary from what we've been discussing?
Well, I'm not like you say, Tom. I'm not the biggest. I'm not the biggest gambler, and I don't really know that much about odds and stuff like that. But I'm not saying I'm picking Klitschko to win, but Klitschko by knockout at 3-1 sounds like decent sort of line there. Like Joshua's chin is questionable, isn't it? I mean, there's quite a bit of evidence. Some of it's circumstantial, I suppose, but certainly he looked to get rocked a little bit in the Dillian White fight. So that coupled with the fact that Vlad does carry awesome power, and power's usually the last thing to go. I think it's not beyond the realms of possibility. AJ 18 fights in, still kind of green, doesn't move his head. These are sort of like things that add up to an equation in which it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if Vlad just sparked him. It really wouldn't, not to me anyway. Not to say I'm picking Vlad, but I don't think it'd be unbelievable. Spilker I had winning up until the point he got knocked out. Had him just ahead in the Wilder fight. He was outboxing him for large, long periods. I think he's fucking 2 levels above, 3 levels above Brazil. I don't like Brazil at all. I agree with Jet. I think he was gifted the decision in the Cassie fight. I thought Fred Cassie won that fight, Brazil Cassie. Spilker's a good bet for me.
What about Furman Garcia, mate? I see that as a closer fight. I mean, Jet was saying 20-25% Garcia. I see it as a lot closer than that.
20-25% Garcia. What?
Jet was saying 20-25% for Garcia to win. You know, and the bookies have it at 33% for Garcia to win. You know, I'd have thought it was more 60-40, 55-45, you know, in favour of Furman.
I think 33% is probably about right. I don't think it's quite as low as 25, but I'm definitely picking Thurman to win there. I'm not a big fan of Garcia. He has his attributes, but I'm not a big fan of him. I think Thurman's a much better sort of like all-round fighter. He's got a lot better sort of form, a lot better resume. He's kind of like I'd certainly have him as a favourite. I don't know if I'd have him as enough of a favourite to want to bet on him. But as I say, I'm not really a big betting person. I only really bet if I'm kind of like really sure somebody's going to win and the price is really good, which is kind of rare. So that's how often I although I do agree with Irish Tom, if you get a decent price on Hughie Fury towards the assuming that fight gets made with Joseph Parker, if there's a decent price on Hughie Fury, I'll definitely be putting a bet on that, because I'm fairly sure that Hughie Fury will win that fight. I like, based on the last couple of performances of Joseph Parker, I really think Hughie Fury will just absolutely school him. I don't really have anything else to say on the betting stuff, but I wondered if anybody was if you were intending on talking about the huge pay-per-view event that we've got coming up with Chris Eubank Jr. versus one Reynold Quinlan.
Please, let's not talk about that. Please.
I've got some actual questions to ask.
Oh,
can you hear me?
from your back.
Can you hear us?
You missed Jet saying that he's going to be betting on Zlatan Cannon to beat your boy Garcia.
Oh well, Jet, I'll take the other side of that. Let's cut the bookies out.
Yeah, guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sherry Potter in the chat. Sherry's locked away in a mountain cabin staring at a photo of Glowacki. So yeah.
Did you actually say that you're backing Zlatan Cannon?
Yeah, I'm backing Zlatan Cannon now. I don't think he's gonna win. I don't think he's gonna win. But
then why are you backing him?
No, I didn't say. Gossip got me wrong.
Yeah, that is terrible from you. You're betting on Zlatan Cannon, but
I'm betting on him, but I don't think he's gonna win. I don't think he's gonna win. You know what? He's live in the fight. I think people are underrating him though. I think people are thinking, oh well, he holds a belt, but you know he's gonna get beaten easy by Garcia. I don't think that's the case. Putting a bet on him would be, you know, wise, just in case. He's got big knockout power, and if he catches Garcia, and Garcia didn't look great in his last fight, didn't look fantastic. So, you know,
I do think Iris got Garcia overrated. I think he is probably better than Zlatan Cannon, but Zlatan Cannon's underrated.
Better.
And Garcia is slightly overrated, but I still have Garcia ahead. But for me, it's at 2-5. It's not one I'm wanting to put, you know, the Boxing Gossip Millions on.
Garcia is pound for pound. For me, Garcia is a pound for pound fighter. Zlatan Cannon is a basic fighter with a good punch. It's simple as that.
Garcia versus Linares. Linares is facing Crolla, obviously, in March. Assuming Linares beats him again, which I'm sure he will. Who wins? Just from
Garcia
everyone.
walks through him.
Okay, Gossip.
What, Garcia Linares?
Yeah.
Yeah, Garcia walks through him. Garcia cleans up that division.
I picked Linares easy in that fight.
Paul?
I'd pick Garcia to beat Linares, but I don't think he cleans up that division though. Tom, do you think he beats Lomachenko?
He's not in that. Lomachenko's not 135.
Yeah. I reckon
The other thing,
you said Garcia will beat Lomachenko. I can't see that.
I'd pick Garcia against Lomachenko, yeah. If Salido's able to beat him, Garcia is a whole different class, and he's able to walk him down, and he's got great power. I think
in his second fight though, or third fight.
And
I
he
know
fouled the fuck out of him. You know, to be honest, I think when people use that fight as any kind of an argument against Lomachenko, it's just fucking ridiculous. In his second fight, Salido punched him in the fucking dick about 30 times and got a decision, and that's your
Irish Tom got Paul fired up there.
You know, he didn't just punch him in the dick. He also bet him up. And the other thing is that if somebody else is punished, somebody else can do it too. And Garcia is a much bigger guy, and he's, you know, Garcia is the truth. We'll see. I'll take Garcia. I think it's a great fight, but I'll take Garcia's side. He cleans up 135. And
I think Lomachenko would absolutely school him. I think he'd school anybody in and around those weights. I personally think Lomachenko he's easily one of the best fighters I've ever seen. I'm not sure I've.
Oh my God, Paul, are you on drugs? Come off it,
mate.
come on.
No.
One of the best fighters you've ever seen, and all he's done is he fought a fella in the American guy who's never fought anybody.
Gary Russell.
And then Gary Russell Jr. He's the best fighter you ever saw, and he bet Gary Russell Jr. and a guy who just moved up the weight class and had a nervous breakdown in the ring.
But Tom,
come on,
Tom, are you completely ignoring 392 fucking world amateur fights? Only losing.
That's amateur. It's not pro boxing.
The thing is, I'm going on what I see when I watch him fight, and what I see when I watch him fight is absolute elite skills. Skills.
Down here, some people might disagree with this, but that's nearly as bad. I probably think it's worse as gossips saying that was better than Rudo.
Say that again,
nearly
mate.
as bad. Nearly as bad as when you said that Tete was the best fighter you ever seen.
Oh, no,
it's nearly as bad as that.
I didn't say Tete was the best fighter I've seen. And I also didn't say necessarily that he was a better fighter than Rigo. What I said is I picked Tete to beat Rigo. But that factors in age and size. And to be honest, size was a very big reason behind me making that pick as well. I would actually, I will side with Irish Tom here. Firstly, I don't think, for me, Lomachenko isn't even on my pound for pound list. The reason being that I think the quality of his opposition is far too low. I also don't think we can factor in amateur boxing in terms of what I view that as a separate discipline, and I don't think that's related. Obviously the skill set is related, but I don't think the record is in terms of making the assessment. The other thing, and Paul, I know we're going to disagree here, mate, but I viewed a loss to Salido as a bit of a problem, actually, in terms of assessing Lomachenko, because I agree that Salido was very, very, he showed very poor sportsmanship. I agree that Salido should have been disqualified, etc. But essentially, I thought in that fight, Lomachenko was, there was a way to beat Lomachenko put in, and I am not so sure that Salido would have been able to implement a game plan against other world level fighters. I just don't think he's that level.
I just don't think you can say a game plan that involved cheating, and a game plan that if checked, and if the rules of boxing were implemented, he would have been disqualified, is a game plan to beat somebody. I think, well, okay, well then if that's the case, well, I could definitely beat Tyson Fury if I bring a baseball bat into the ring. I know a baseball bat's not allowed, but that's a way to beat him. I mean, it's a farcical argument.
But look, Paul, that's nonsense though. Look at Bernard Hopkins. He was a dirty bastard for 25 years. People can get away with it when they're good and they're a good pro and they do it. These are what professionals do. They try and push things and push the rules.
I don't accept that. I don't like Bernard Hopkins either. I think what a professional does.
Well, you don't have to like him or not, but it does mean that there's a weakness in Lomachenko, that he's able to be bullied. Like, he hasn't been up against he's been up against Gary Russell Jr., who's got fast hands and no results. Yeah? I haven't seen Gary Russell Jr. fight anybody that I know.
Well,
and he,
I just, I want to say something. Since you're high on Mikey Garcia, Irish Tom, obviously he fought at 140 in his last fight. I know he probably said he's going to move up.
138.
Same thing.
He fought at 138.
That's above lightweight, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it is.
light welter, yeah. Who would you pick, him or Crawford?
Oh, I'd pick Crawford at 140.
Do you think you'd KO him or points?
I think Mikey Garcia is not a 140 fighter. So and Bud is a special fighter. I have Bud number one pound for pound. So I think Bud is better than Mikey Garcia, and he's bigger than him. So definitely Bud would win.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Mikey Garcia is the truth, and I think that Lomachenko is not a 135 fighter, and he is yet to fight and look good against an elite fighter. And it's all well and good. There's been lots of fighters who look really, really good. You can't compare him to somebody like Roy Jones Jr. or Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather, because they actually did it. It's not what you look like when you're fighting a few times.
You can't
just have 6-7 fights and say you're the best fighter I've ever seen. It's just kind of nonsense. You couldn't say it about Rigondo. You can't say it about Rigondo, but Rigondo at least has got one top quality win.
Who are you talking about? Donaire?
Yeah.
Well,
a fella who's ranked pound for pound. Lomachenko hasn't come close to anybody at that level.
But Walters beat Donaire. So Walters beat Donaire, and Donaire's a top draw win, but Walters is not a top win.
Walters beat the ghost of Donaire at a higher weight class than Donaire. Donaire fought him at 126.
I'll say this, and I'll say no more, right? I believe that the next year, 2 years will prove. I think in a year's time, 2 years' time, maybe 3 years' time, you'll all be going, fucking hell, you were right. I know I see. I used to box, mate. I know what I see when I look at somebody. Yeah, resume, no, of course you can't put him up with the likes of Roy Jones Jr., people like that. That's ridiculous. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when I look at the guy fight, when I watch him, talking about eye testing, talking about what I see. What I see is an elite fighter.
But I see an elite fighter too, but I don't see him as one of the best of all time. I just don't. I can't see it like that.
Didn't say he's one of the best of all time. I said he was one of the best fighters I've ever seen. He does.
Well, that's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Come on now.
No, it's not. He does things in the ring that I've never seen other fighters do. I see him do things better than I've ever seen other fighters do. It's not to say
I think
all-time great, because he's at the start of his career. He's had 7 fights.
I think if Prime Manny went in there with him at 135, he just clean him out.
Say again.
I think if a prime Manny, even nowadays, if Manny went in at 135, I've got Manny a favourite.
Manny now.
And that's Manny now. I have him a favourite. And look. To say that somebody is like the best you've ever seen is like I just disagree with you. I don't think he's the best I've ever seen. I don't think he's
one of the best I've ever seen. And I
yeah. But I can't say that. I wouldn't put him probably in the top 100 I've seen. Now I just don't see it. I think he's got some tricks, but there's been so many good fighters over the year.
Opinion, Tom. We're all going to have different ones. It's like the whole point of it, isn't it?
Exactly. I know, but I gotta pick you up on that one because I disagree. Here, I've got another question for you boys. Has anybody seen the Jarrell Miller tweet about Hughie?
Yes. So Jarrell Miller believes that he should be the WBO mandatory, and I know he's very, very dissatisfied and extremely upset about the suggestion that David Price or Hughie Fury could fight Joseph Parker ahead of him, and he's calling everyone out noisily. What was the specific tweet, Tom? Because I think I've seen it, but I can't recall it.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, this is a quote. This is the tweet, right? He says, this is the truth. This is number one. He has numbers. 1, steroid that Hughie and Tyson Fury got caught using caused the same skin disorder he has, and his boxing license is 2, suspended. 3, he can't leave the country of England, and his case is still 4, pending. On top of that, 5, pulled out of 4-man title eliminator against me before Parker won belt. That's why Parker and Ruiz fought straight for the title. You snooze, you lose. I'm next. So wow, how can HBO even consider this guy for title shot right now in the state of his career right now over me? Is boxing dirty or just the people in it? I believe the WBO will do the right thing. Say no to Fury and yes to Big Baby Miller. 2017 Parker versus Big Baby. Facts.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not sure that is facts. Because
no, neither am I. I just wondered if anybody saw it and they know anything about it.
Yeah,
I know, but it's all well. I can understand why Jarrell Miller's pissed off, and if I were him, I'd be pissed off as well. But the fact that he's put facts at the end of his tweet doesn't make any of it factual. And the fact, as far as I'm aware, is that he is behind Hughie Fury in the rankings. And
but the thing though, it's interesting though, gossip, is that maybe he does know what's happening with his drug case because he had to tell the WBO and he knows. That's why I think it's kind of interesting. So maybe Hughie is suspended and can't leave England.
It is interesting. I don't know whether that's true or not. Does anybody else know whether that's true?
That's just 27 minutes ago he posted that one out, I think. So we'll see what happens.
What would you... why? I mean, I've never heard of a drugs cheat, not be allowed to leave a country.
No,
before.
neither have I.
That sounds nonsensical.
That's a bit thing. That would be like a government, not a government. That would be like a police case, like if they have a thing against you. So I don't know what he's talking about there. That's a bit weird.
Well, it could be... But it could be something like, where the WBO have banned him, but the British Board of Boxing Control haven't or something.
I doubt that because he holds a version of their regional belt, like the Intercontinental WBO belt. So they would have stripped him already off that. And then they would have took him out of the rankings and that sort of stuff. So Jarrell Miller is...
Well,
I think that's just a bit of a rant more than anything.
Yeah. Also, from following Hughie Fury on social media, I'm pretty sure that I'm actually aware of him leaving the country. I'm certainly aware of Tyson Fury leaving the country.
I don't think he means just leaving the country. I don't think he means like that.
Do you think he means like fighting abroad, does he?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's not been removed from the rankings doesn't necessarily mean...
Yeah, but loads of people...
Erkan Tepe was still in the rankings for fucking about years after...
and if anybody could get the WBO not to strip him of a title, it'd be Frank Warren.
Oh yeah, him and the WBO like bloody.
Yeah, another thing I'll say, right, and I'm not saying Hughie Fury necessarily deserves to be ranked number 1 because I believe, based on the level of opposition he's fought, he certainly doesn't. But there's no way Jarrell Miller deserves to be mandatory for a world title slot. I mean. Where's Jarrell Miller's real notable win? I mean, yeah, he looked better than Hughie against Cassie, but, I haven't seen Jarrell Miller fight anyone in the top 20 or the top 30. I haven't seen, Jarrell. I know, they've got a common opponent in Cassie and Miller looked better, but if you actually look at the resume elsewhere, Hughie's wins for me over the likes of Rudenko and Dominic Gwynn, it's arguable that over the course of his career, Hughie's actually fought a higher level of opposition, although, it is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but I'm not sure Jarrell Miller's necessarily in a great position to be glass houses and all of that,
Yeah, I've got one other question to ask you, boys. Let's see if anybody knows. I don't know the answer to this one. It's when you were talking earlier about the James DeGale fight. And the internet was gone. My missus is downloading fucking Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Jesus Christ, what I have to put up with in this relationship. But is James DeGale is fighting your man for the WBC title, Badu Jack. James DeGale, does he have to do VADA testing if Badu Jack does?
They
I have no idea.
agree on it. It happened with Canelo. You know, when Canelo and Liam Smith didn't do it, they agree on it with both parties. I know, obviously, WBC have VADA, so yeah, he probably has to do it. Yeah, most likely. But
I don't know. I don't know if DeGale does, because he's not like somebody. I think I don't know if somebody in the chat put it.
because I think it's a WBC
Unification.
Yeah, it's a fight under the WBC sort of boxing organization. So he probably will have to do it. He'd have to be involved. It's been.
I don't know if anybody saw that David Hay also said something to like David to Tony Bellew, and Tony Bellew is ranked to the WBC, so he has to do his VADA. And David Hay was like, "Yeah, and I'm not even on VADA, so I'm going to smash you up."
I didn't hear that.
Wow. Well, I wonder what he means there.
Yeah.
There. Right, we've overrun, which is not a problem. It's been a good chat tonight. I've been pretty worried actually when I wrote the schedule for the show earlier. I was pretty worried that we'd be over and done with in an hour today, but it's been the complete opposite. So let me do a whip round the panel, see if everyone's got everything off the chest, or if there's anything more to throw into the mix. Jet, let me start with you, mate.
Did you guys? Sorry to be a pain. Obviously, I wasn't here at the start. Did you guys discuss the Gavin McDonnell fight? That Bill was made, Tommy Coyle and Luke Campbell. Sort of. I don't know if you guys discussed that.
No, to be honest, I knew that Gavin McDonnell had a world title fight, but I didn't know there'd been a bill announced. Has Eddie Hearn come out and announced it? Has he?
Yeah, it's in Hull. He's obviously headlining McDonnell versus Ray Vargas for the WBC Super Bantamweight world title. Obviously, Hasegawa he retired, so it's a vacant belt. Luke Campbell will defending his WBC silver lightweight title against Jairo Lopez. Terrible opponent. Stepped down from Derry Matthews. What's the other one? Tommy Coyle was facing someone at 140 again. So there's going to be a few other people. I think Dave Allen might be on the card as well.
Yeah. Team Groves just put that in the chat that Dave Allen's been added to the card.
So Coyle facing Kofi Yates. Yeah, Mike, you just put it. So not.
What happened to Campbell Coddle?
I didn't know that was announced. I didn't know that was.
I don't think it was announced, but I think it was like heavily suggested.
I don't think so. You know, I think since he's won the WBC silver, he's going to be quite high for the opponent. The winner, so he'll probably be number 3 or 4 in the WBC lightweight rankings. I'd assume he's kind of like 7 or 8 in the WBA and that sort of stuff. He's ranked pretty highly because of his comeback wins, obviously against Argenis Mendes and stuff. But I was just wondering if you guys had spoke about it. Not the worst bill, but at least there's some boxing on. I guess that's the main thing. In February.
No, we haven't spoken about it, and to be completely honest, I didn't actually know that the bill had been announced. So I'll need to check that out. Was that announced via Twitter, or was there a press conference?
It was announced on Twitter first. Someone had posted it, and then Eddie Hearn had posted it, and they made a poster for it and everything. So it's all been done pretty much. That was all done and dusted, and they'll probably do a press conference to announce it formally very, very soon. But it's I think February 25th, if I'm correct.
And just when we're on the subject of bills being announced, Linares Crawler 2 is set for March 25th, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's
Is that in Manchester? Yeah.
It's in Manchester, same venue. I'd assume. Don't know if it'll be on. I'd assume it'd be on normal Sky Sports. Done pretty well, last time in terms of selling out and that sort of stuff. And I'd expect the same sort of victory, Linares by, points. I'd go with. I think Crawler's game, but I think it'll go to points, and Linares will win quite handily on the scorecards.
Yeah, I mean, they won't put it on pay-per-view, surely, because they've got. Firstly, it's not a pay-per-view fight, and secondly, haven't they got Hay Bellew and Joshua Klitschko already for that sort of time of the year?
A few weeks after,
Yeah. Okay. No, good update, Jet. Yeah, I need to check that out regarding the whole show. It's good. I'm pleased. I know Tom isn't the biggest fan, but I'm pleased to hear Dave Allen's on the bill. I must get Dave Allen back on the channel. I'm also going to get Adrian Granat on the channel next week. He's got a very, very big fight to announce against quite a big name opponent, and I think you guys will be very, very excited to hear who that opponent is. It's going to be an interesting fight, actually. So I'll hopefully try and organise that in the next week or so. Paul, anything from yourself, mate?
I just this was actually my my reason for mentioning the Eubank Junior fight. I don't know if anybody heard this. It was on Boxing News. They asked 380 people whether Eubank Junior versus Quinlan is pay-per-view worthy. Do you know how many people said it was?
330.
One person said it was pay-per-view worthy out of all of that people, out of 380 people, and his dad, with the information that Joshua White did 450,000 views, buys, Canelo Cotto did 900,000 buys. Eubank Senior estimates the amount of buys for this fight, 6 million buys.
Yeah, but it's bullshit. But like the thing is, I can see them easily doing 50 or 100,000 buys, and 100,000 buys at 20 grand a pop is 2 million quid, and he'll make a shitload of cash out of it. I can see that happening easy. ITV is such a big platform.
Speaking
so many
of
people
Eubanks,
don't have a clue.
Did anyone hear or see the thing where Eddie Hearn posted about Chris Eubank Senior wanted an appearance fee to go to Barry Hearn's birthday or something?
Yeah,
like
he
that?
said that during his interview as well.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe that. The one time you probably go to Eddie Hearn and go, you know what? Fair play to you, try to do something good, and you get a custard pie from Chris Eubank Senior. Can I have a couple of quid? I might get an appearance fee. Bloody hell.
Yeah,
but I told you boys before what Chris Eubank did.
Yeah. I watched.
I told you what he did before in college, where he bankrupted one of the societies.
Tom,
where he took like.
I
won't.
I was thinking about that.
It was in the papers.
I was thinking about that when I heard Eddie Hearn say it in that interview. He said Eubank Senior was fucking ringing his phone off and everything. The phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing, and in the end, it was him stood outside saying, "Have you got that 250 quid?" Like, whoa, man.
Well, the one thing I'd say in Chris Eubank's defense, and I'm no fan of Chris Eubank Senior, I think he's a scumbag, to be honest. And but the one thing is, like, I stand up for any boxer who basically tries to make as much money as they can and fight with the promoters. You know what I mean? I don't care if boxers fight with promoters. And if Eubank manages to pull this one off for his son, and he brings it through there, and he makes a name for him on pay-per-view and ITV, he'll have done a good job for his son. So we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up making a lot of money. You could end up seeing Chris Eubank Jr. Making nearly as much as Kell Brook. I don't think it's that unreasonable, making as much as Kell Brook did, and he could get smashed up by GGG. And he's fighting a nobody. So,
I think Eubank Jr. will make a lot of money for two reasons. For one, the name Eubank in this country is well fucking known. Everybody of sort of like reasonable age remembers when Senior was fighting, or has knowledge of when he was fighting and whatnot. And the other reason is his style. I mean, he's exciting to watch. He's a showman in the ring, and that you don't really see that much these days. And that, for those two reasons, he will do well. I've no doubt of it.
Absolutely. I think the other thing to factor in here is, I don't think the person who buys that pay-per-view is the same customer as the person who buys the Sky pay-per-view. The person who buys the Sky pay-per-view is, well, not all the time, but there's more of us who want to see competitive fights, 50-50, matchups, British title fights, that sort of thing. I think the person who buys the Eubank pay-per-view is actually looking to see their favourite fighter destroy someone. What they actually want to see is Chris Eubank Jr. win by knockout in 4 or 5 rounds, throwing massive hooks and massive uppercuts and knocking someone out. I don't believe that person is looking to see a legit competitive fight. So I believe we're actually not necessarily understanding the mindset and the mind frame of the Eubank's target market. I completely agree with Tom. Actually, I think this will be a big success, and I've changed my opinion on this. But the Eubank name, as Paul suggested, the fact that they're not actually going to have to do very many buys here, because they're paying minimal funds to rent the venue. They're paying minimal funds to bring the opponent in. I mean, this opponent must be very cheap comparatively compared to most pay-per-view opponents. I think if they do 100,000 pay-per-view buys, commercially, it's probably a success. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they do 150, 200, because ITV are going to promote this. They're going to have, great lead-up shows with Eubank and showing his personality, and they're going to have great programming around it. So I think it's, I think it's going to be a success.
Can I ask something and be honest, right? Had any before this fight got made and before this whole thing, had any of you heard of Reynold Quinlan?
I hadn't.
Only because he beat Daniel Gill, but I didn't know who he was before that.
She went out with a friend of mine. He brought her to his dad's.
He's the long lost brother of Peter Quillen. Maybe that rings a bell.
He's just altered his surname ever so slightly for his own reasons. He worked. I was trying to figure out how much it would have cost them to bring him over, and you're right, Tom. He had 11 fights. Nobody had a clue who he was before this. What do you reckon? 100,000? If
that, I reckon probably less.
I wouldn't be surprised, but look, what are their expenses? They're putting it in a fucking an icing rink in East London. Cost them $5,000 to do it for the night. Maybe 50 grand in production costs, 100 grand maybe tops. Pay a man 20 grand, 30 grand to come over. 150. If they sell 10,000, they break even. And everything above that is money in the bank.
Shocking, and they're calling that a world title fight. I know it's the IBO title, but fucking hell. It's just, oh, God. I don't know.
I'm telling you, it should be called the Irish Boxing Organisation. It still wouldn't be as good as an Irish senior title.
Fucking ridiculous, man.
There we go. Tom, anything else from yourself, Tom?
No, I'll just wait till I interrupt you later on.
There isn't going to be a later on, mate. Paul, Jet, you guys good to wrap it up here?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Any go-go news? No go-go news?
I hear he's making a comeback at light heavyweight to take on the Kovalev award winner, actually.
Yeah.
But no. Happy New Year to Mr. Agogo if you're watching.
What do you mean if?
Right. If, yeah. He's one of my loyal subscribers. Yeah. Guys, thanks to everyone who's spent their Wednesday evenings with us. This has probably been the longest podcast we've ever done. I've really enjoyed it tonight. I think it's probably because Jet wasn't there for the first hour or so, but it seemed to flow really nicely. Thanks to everyone who's given up their evenings in the chat. Thanks to the panelists, Tom, Paul, and of course Jet. I was only kidding. Please take the time to hit the thumbs up button. Give Jet's channel a look, which is the Boxing Discussions channel. Hit the subscribe button over there, and subscribe to my channel as well if you're new. We haven't done so before. We're back every Wednesday at 8:30. Look forward to next week's already. Hopefully we'll have some actual boxing to discuss then, but nevertheless, it's been some good chat tonight. So on that note, I'll say good evening. Have a good one, everyone.
Cheers.
Take care all.
Ciao.
Cheers.